We are now starting session 3 of BigBlueButtonWorld Day 2, or session 4. Sorry about that. So today we will be hearing 2 presentations on Scalelite. So the first one will be from Jesus Federico from Blindside Networks, and he'll be giving a Scalelite load balancer overview. And then after Jesus's presentation, we'll be hearing from Andy Munt. Andy is going to be talking about using Scalelite and BigBlueButton in the German state of Baden-Württemberg. And yeah, so with that, I turn it over to Jesus. Thank you for joining us.
All right, thank you. Yes, thank you everyone for coming. Welcome to this presentation. Today we're gonna talk about, this might not surprise you, BigBlueButton and how to make it scale. My name is Jesus Federico. I am a software engineer by trade, as well as the previous presenter. Educated in Mexico with a bachelor's degree in computer science and a master's in e-commerce. I'm an active developer in several programming languages. Advocate of open source, have been for more than 20 years. Core developer of the BBBs project for over 10 years. And mainly focused on integrations with third-party applications, and also director of products and services at Blindside Networks. When we do travel around the world, because we have that opportunity with BigBlueButton presenting and showing, things that people wearing my name do, spreading the word, is we normally hear the question, or I have a question, receive a question, does it scale? The short answer to that is yes, it scales. The question is, how do we scale? So when we talk about applications, how to scale application, how the applications scale, we can go through either 2 paths. One is scaling up, what we call scaling up, or scaling out. Scaling up will be more like making the server where the application is running bigger, and the other is spreading the load into multiple small size or same size, even different size servers or machines running the same application. In terms of BigBlueButton, normally the first step that we do is just stop using the computer you hide under your desk for demonstrating to your manager that the BigBlueButton works, and getting it to work in a real server, or probably even in an EC2 instance on AWS or any other cloud. So just making it like larger, but there is a limit with that. On Amazon, we have the experience that machines running on a C5A 2X large with 8 CPUs and 16 gigabytes can hold right above 100 users. I could say a little more, but Fred is listening to me and he's going to say, keep it like small. So 101, 120, 105 will be still 100 plus. So that's more or less the number, but there is a limit. We can hear more about why is that limit coming tomorrow. I invite you to come to Anton's presentation tomorrow, and we can ask him about that. But it doesn't matter how much big we bring the computer or the server up, it's always going to have that limit. It's one of the, it's more has to do with the architecture of the application. So the only viable option we have is to scale out. So we're scaling out. If we take the very same size of computers and we spread them, we will be like 100 times the number of servers naturally. So 4 servers will give us 400 users, and 400 server will give us 40,000 users concurrently. But what do we need for that? For that, we need a load balancer. As we know, we have been using load balancer for more than 2 decades now, and we know how that works. It's essentially some application or some front end spreading the load in several services that are, as I say, running the same application, BigBlueButton in this case. But this application or this load balancer for BigBlueButton is like as no other. In this case, our load balancer must know the load of the BigBlueButton servers in the pool. It must keep track of the status of the service, and ideally the status of the meetings as well at all time. It must remember every meeting, in which server every meeting is running, and even perhaps what users are in each server and what meeting. And at the same time, must be able to respond to BigBlueButton API requests. That is not a simple load balancer you find everywhere. So that means that it must be an application. This is a dedicated application for BigBlueButton. And this is because I steal that logo from Greenlight. It represents Greenlight. It's not official logo. Greenlight doesn't have an official logo, but I thought it was funny because it's, well done, I guess. So the users scan to the third-party application, in this case, Greenlight. Greenlight is going to be seeing a single BigBlueButton server. No matter how many BigBlueButton servers are behind the load balancer, it's only going to be one. But the user must be connected in a one-to-one with that particular server. So when the connection or the meeting has started and the user has joined, the communication with the load balancer ends, and now the user is connected with the BigBlueButton server. This is what companies like the 4Big in our community, Blind Networks, Enconf, Air Advice, and BBB Host BBB have been offering for more than 8 years, 10 years, let's say. So this is what we have. We have our own load balancers. And in the case of Blind Network, we call it LB5, load balancer 5, which comes from the original version we have. It should be LB300 by now, but that is a commercial or a proprietary development or application. So the options, when you want to scale BigBlueButton, what options do you have? Obviously, the easy one is go through any of these vendors and ask them to scale through their load balancer. But you might want to have your own cloud for several reasons, which is what we have been seeing in the presentations today. So what do? You either go and develop your own, or you go to one of the solutions, open source solutions that are out there. So I'm gonna digress for a minute here. I'm gonna tell you a story. Once upon a time, there was a happy planet called Earth, where human beings were so happy to be. It was the best place for them to be, it seems. And people was traveling around the world, able to see all these cool places in the world, gathering, having meetings, and even having face-to-face large gatherings like the summit, the BigBlueButton Summit back in 2019. But that was just about to change in 2020 from having crowded classrooms all over the world. Because the COVID pandemic, we end up having the new phase that we have of schools, just empty classrooms. It was a new reality that we had to face. And in February 2020, one of the first schools, or one of the first places on Earth that started getting these lockdowns, call for lockdown, was China. At the beginning of February or end of January, the University of Liverpool, Xi'an Jiangtong and Liverpool University received notice that in 4 weeks they were gonna enter in a lockdown. It's not the largest school on Earth, but they still have 50,000 students, and they wanted to continue the service in the way they were doing. So they are not foreign to using open source or IT for distance learning. They have probably one of the largest deployments of Moodle in China. And they were using BigBlueButton already, but the question was here how to scale it, because they had to have all the students now at once. So they had to have a cluster of at least 24 servers. It was defined at the time, and they needed a load balancer. So they came to us, Blindsign Networks, which they had already a relation. We know the people from their IT department, and that's how Scalelite load balancer started. It became in a short period of time, like 4 weeks, as I say, it became as a simple load balancer for BigBlueButton written in Ruby on Rails. In those 4 weeks, they were the first, they were not only the sponsor, but the first user of Scalelite. They started testing. Well, we did like quick iterations, and it was like in one version every week, and then one after the other. And they started with Alpha 3, I think, and then they did finally launch with Alpha 4, and we released in the end on March 13, the first version of Scalelite. Over the time, a lot of universities joined it, and like community grow. This was an open source project since the beginning. We agreed that this was going to be the case. So from that simple application or simple load balancer for BigBlueButton, it became an scalable load balancer for BigBlueButton, which has been for 195 times, and it has been released, or we have had 32 releases so far. A few more coming, and now we are in short periods of releases again of 2 weeks is what we're trying to keep it like with the small updates or releases. The images are, well, this is bundled or distributed with Docker images. So the images have been downloaded over 1 million. We just lost track. Over 1 million is of downloads in 1 year. That's the only data we can get from Docker Hub. So there are stories spread all over. Some of them are portraying the different usages of Scalelite and BigBlueButton. And obviously, those deployments that we know are there in Europe. Europe has been strong in the use of BigBlueButton, and as we will hear of the uses of Scalelite as well. There are quite a few of those deployments. And well, this is the new normal, and I think is going to be for the time to come. We are here to support you, and as the team that developer, these are the contributors of the project, the original ones, the core developers, Ahmad, Calvin, and myself as the creators or the starters. And the name with no name, the guy with no name, but brave enough to show his face, Amal Rails, who just recently joined us for to the team. He's the one responding and doing the heavy lifting right now. But let's talk about the architecture of the application, getting to more of the technical stuff. So Scalelite, in the way it works is we try to make it simple. So that statement that we had at the beginning, we try to continue or keep it that way. We try to make it simple, a simple architecture. So Scalelite should be an application in our mind dedicated only to the balancing and nothing else. And so what we have is connected with, it has, or the third-party application, in this case, is represented by Moodle, CAMs, and CDs, and all the BigBlueButton servers are handled by the load balancer. This is polling or gathering the information and putting in memory database, Redis, and is also receiving the recordings that are processed by the BigBlueButton servers themselves, pushing them to Scalelite, and Scalelite is storing somewhere, either local file system or a network file system, and keeping the references in a database. So when another request comes, it's able to respond either about the state of the meetings and or the recordings. So those are the pretty much the features of the application. Now the question is, how do we deploy this thing? The answer to that is there is no right there is no right answer. There is no single recipe for deploying really a Scalelite. If you are an experienced system administrator, which I will guess most of the people here in this meeting are, you know that depending on the needs and depending on the resources constraints that you might have to choose different ways of deploying. There is no single recipe. We ship this with System D because at the time which is just right, the next step about starting manually the Docker containers. Well, all this is Docker, but as we advance it, we realized that there were other ways of doing it and probably simpler, and we start giving people choices. The next attempt of doing this was Docker Compose. There is a recipe for doing that. And seems like the next natural step is using Docker Swarm. We want to make it like more robust, and to end with something even more robust will be Kubernetes, which is, to be honest, my tool of choice in this case. And over there you have a bunch of options depending on the cloud you're going to choose. And then there is another alternative that is Amazon ECS directly, which I haven't explored yet, but it's in my list of things to do, hopefully soon. So let's get into the components of a Scalelite. In terms of, let's say, containers that we must have, in this case, again, is Docker. We must have a front end that is going to be the one receiving all the requests coming from the exterior. And then we have the API itself, which is the Rails application, and some way to respond to the recordings that we're going to be serving as well. We have two jobs or task managers that are going to be the poller, which is pulling the data from the BigBlueButton servers, and the recording important is just listening or watching a directory where the recordings are placed. So it's processed and pulled to the database. The system D is all together in one place. Is pretty much as you see. I should actually put the square a little smaller and be in the dotted one. And all the database and all the components are exterior to that. We have in the README that documentation that should be improved, I know, and we're going to work on that. But it's that was a simple way of doing it. Then the next one, there is all-in-one node using Docker Compose. There are a couple of documents there that I wrote about 1 year ago. You can see the links there, or search for Scalelite Lazy Deployment, Scalelite Lazy Deployment Part 2 for recordings. And the code is there. Just keep in mind that this is a version 1.0 stable. There is a new version that is doing things a little different. Just to mention here is the difference is, so we have in this original version, we have one image per component, as we see here. And then we have this Nginx, which is a custom image that we built for doing Nginx. But we receive feedback and we receive requests actually from the users of Scalelite, and we kind of change the way. Getting back to the components, one of the things that we were required to do is to decouple these recordings and actually make these independent, so you can have anything as a front end. It could be Nginx, which is what we use now, or it could be HA proxy or even Apache if you want. I don't think anybody will do that, but it's an option. So the first thing we did was to, for this version, is now we have everything in one. And in terms of Docker Compose, we're naming them the same way. Scalelite dash something, in this case, Polar API, recording importer, but they are in reality the same image. And then we have a new image, which is coming directly from BigBlueButton. This is BBB playback proxy, which must be updated with any code that we have. If we ever have, or when we have updates on BigBlueButton, this image is generated so it can be pulled with the latest version all the time. And lastly, this component over here can be anything. In this case, we are using for our deployments in Nginx, but it could be anything if you want, if you make those changes in your Docker Compose file. We can even enhance this a little bit by doing using AWS services. So in the previous slide, what I'm showing is that we have Redis, Postgres, and the recording side, the file system. While this is convenient because you can run it in one shot, this is something I don't recommend for production. This is what I will start recommending for production, which is like, even using Docker Compose, which is just stable enough, especially because you can, depending on the configuration, the images can be more resilient, then they can restart themselves or come back to life if they fail. So that's a pretty nice thing to have. And just externalizing the services, the database, Redis, and the file system with an EFS. This is the same one, and I'm making it even a little more robust. We'll be using the same deployment. You can have two machines and just put a load balancer at the front. A network load balancer, an application load balancer will be the recommendation in terms of AWS services. And that will make, and we have been running these, or we were running this way for a while for demo. Demo holds sessions or users. It's over 1 million users right now, and a number of sessions that we host every day. Although, as I say, my tool of choice will be on Kubernetes, and this will be, I cannot even see the details of these. Hopefully you do. Well, we can share these slides though. So indeed, we have the spread of all the services. We're using all the resources that we have. We have an ingress where receive all the requests, and then we have two services, one for the main one, which is going to be the API service, and another one for receiving the recordings from BigBlueButton. And then on Scalelite, we spread those on the different services that we have or deployments that we have, the API, the recordings with the images I just mentioned before. We have an spool, which is going to be only accessed by the BigBlueButton servers through these other service. And we have only one, which is important, only one recording importer running for the full deployment. And we might have one, because Dimon said, one poller per node in the cluster. So we make things a little more efficient. So we have configuration, secrets, etc. And we have a persistent volume claim with the persistent volume tied to an EFS instance. So this will be like the cleaner deployment for me, and the easier for any administrator. If you have the resources for using Kubernetes, not everybody has, not everybody can do it. Not everybody can do it through these clouds. So, but that will be my recommendation. Just to finish up, I'm gonna use only 1 minute to mention here that the roadmap for what we're working on right now, we are on version 1.1. Whatever revision we have, we're only focused on bug fixes. That's pretty much a frozen version. And we are starting the development of version 1.2. Which is mainly going to have an epic that we call this protected recordings. And protected recordings is nothing but a unique link. Because right now, if you share the recording with the Word, you have access, or the Word have access to it. Protected recording will give the ability of applications to force users to go through the third-party application instead of just in the way it is right now. The other thing we have to work on is documentation. That is our commitment for version 1.2, and then the big change for version 2, and then is where we will be adding new functionality if anything comes. Is version 2 with where the main change is going to be a single Docker image, which is what we have now. It's just we had to support the old way, and more recommended deployments as described in this presentation. How to get involved? This is a very important one. Please, if you want to get involved, reporting bugs is the best way to do it because we are making the product better. You are helping us to make the product better. But it's very important for us to receive from you not only the report that something is failing, is describe the problem and describe the steps to reproduce it. And very, very important is commit yourself to test it because that is where we, other open source projects have probably a problem. When testing, we know that we did it. We think that we did it right, but we need to at least have the help of that who found it to prove that we did it. So if we release a beta version, the beta version is for you. It's not for everybody else. It's for the person who did the report. So please help us with that. Feature requests are welcome, but they need to be beneficial for everybody, not only for your particular use case. Hopefully, it's gonna benefit everybody else as well. So and it should be hopefully well documented. Again, state the problem you need or want to solve, and if you have a potential solution, also describe it in there. Pull requests are welcome, mostly for bug fixes. Those are normally emerge right away. But new feature or improvements, they should have an issue open, and hopefully we already discussed the best way of doing it. And with that being said, may the force be with you, and feedback is always welcome. You can share your thoughts with me, send me an email. There is my address, and we'll be open to comments. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jesus. Okay, so we're going to go over a few questions from the chat, and then we'll turn it over to Andy Munt, who will also be presenting on Scalelite. So to kick off the questions, Johannes asks, have you considered architectures where Corrento/FreeSwitch/BBB-HTML5 don't need to run on the same machine? So individual components can be scaled horizontally by adding more machines.
That is a good question, but I think it's a question for tomorrow meetings because it's part of the BigBlueButton product or core product itself.
Okay, Johannes, so tune in tomorrow to some of those sessions. Michael asks, is there a way to just have 2 to 3 EC2 BBB servers and keep one all the time and spin up and off the other 2 as needed?
On demand, we don't have the capability, no as it is right now, of turning off on and off servers on demand. But you will have to have, it's a little more complex than just turning on and off servers. No, we don't have that capability. It will require an extension of the API and also some way to connect to whatever cloud we're using, in this case, AWS or any other, right? As something that we might think of in the future. Okay.
Another question / feature request, I think, is could Scalelite spin up a dormant server in the server pool? This would be great to set up cost-efficient, small BigBlueButton clusters.
Same thing, right? Is based of we have an idea, I've been just thinking of how to do that. But again, this comes to, it cannot be generalized because it depends on the API. The API or the solution depends on the cloud where you have these machines running. We lately have been working closely with AWS, but we know that there are others using some other clouds like DigitalOcean or others.
Okay, awesome. Thank you for answering that. I'm just going to take one quick look here at the YouTube chat to see if there's any other questions here. Okay, Farrakhan asks, as we run a K8s cluster, is there already a timeline for Kubernetes support of the Scalelite?
Say it again, please.
Here, I'll paste it in the chat since
right.
It's coming from the YouTube channel. I'll go ahead and paste that in the chat.
Oh, you just put it there. Okay. Well, that's more up to the deployment. As I say, we have a demo right now running on Kubernetes. That's the fact. So it's supported. It's just that we're not sharing the scripts, let's say, for that deployment. But it can be done. I mean, it works pretty well on Kubernetes. As I say, that's my tool of choice.
Okay. And then Michael has a question. Do the cloud computing companies have APIs that might be able to be used to do this poor man's on-demand load balancing?
Yeah, but we will have to connect to those APIs. I say AWS have the API AWS offers different than the one that Google offers and DigitalOcean offers. So it must be generalized in a way that works with everybody. Probably is the use of different tools. Likely won't be like it will have to be done with an external tool. As I say, what we're trying to do here with the Scalelite is to keep it simple and to make it just scale, and that's it.
Okay. Okay, thank you so much, Jesus, for your time and sharing all of your knowledge with us. That was awesome. Jesus, I'm assuming we'll be sticking around for Andy's presentation. So Jesus can be in the chat if you'd like to start a private chat with him to ask any more questions, or you can send him an email at jesus@blindsidenetworks.com. Thanks again, and I'm going to turn it over to Andy Munt.
Thank you, yes.
Hello, welcome everybody. Many thanks also from my side for Jesus' talk. And you will see now our setup in Southwest Germany, where we use this scaling, which Jesus showed quite extensively, I would say. Okay, just a few words about myself. I'm a physicist. I worked in research for quite some years. I did quantum optics, and we trapped some ion. Then it were experiments for quantum computing or leading to some quantum computing maybe in the future, sometime. And then after this time at university, I spent a few years at an optics company doing optical lithography. And then I switched to school again. So just to give an idea about my background. And now I want to give you an overview about our setup of BBB and Scalelite. And I just show you how it all started last year and how we designed our system to run BigBlueButton instances on very powerful machines with many cores. And then when in the winter we had a second wave of school lockdowns, and we had to scale the infrastructure. And now in this spring, I want to say a few words about upgrading to the version 2.3. Okay, how did it start? We all know last year, March 2020, first lockdown started, and then suddenly all schools in Germany were locked down, and the question was, how can we provide some education? How can you continue educating our pupils and students? And we ask ourselves, can we provide an online teaching tool for our schools where we, the users, the teachers, the students, are in control? And we said, well, let's give it a try. And this was a grassroots initiative led by Andreas Grupp. I also want to mention my co-workers, Frank Schiebel and of course, myself. And later we got support from Johannes Dost and Matthias Waffenschmidt. And Andreas Grupp, it was his idea to give BigBlueButton a try, and he already knew the software. All the others, we were not familiar with it. And he asked the public administration if they would support like a prototype to try BigBlueButton at some schools. And then it was a lot of back and forth, and it's sometimes not so easy with this huge public administration system. And in the end, we got very powerful machines with 32 cores and 64 threads. And at that time, people said, well, this BigBlueButton is just a single node process, and you can't make use of these many cores. So we thought about that and thought about how can we use these strong machines. And well, we had also, as I said, no experience with BBB. And so we aimed for a very flexible setup where we can adjust and flexibly move in the parameter space, kind of. And of course, then if you want to scale this, you need to do this all automatically. Okay, what we did, we started with a Debian stable on the host system, and for every host we had a /27 IP4 network. And for us, because there was already some experience, we decided to try a very simple setup. We put on every host systemd nspan containers. And in these containers, we installed Ubuntu, and then we did the usual BigBlueButton installation. I will come to that later and explain it a bit, because it's not so common, this setup. Then we put on every host, also in a systemd nspan container, Debian stable with Kotlin as a turn server. And we used Ansible for configuration management. And I come to that later in more detail. In the beginning, one Scalelite server for load balancing. Okay, how does this systemd nspan stuff work? Without going into the details, it's pretty simple. You just run the bootstrap. So you install a basic root file system into a directory. In Ansible, this looks like this, and well, the key point is just this command, more or less. You add some extra packages. You define some repositories, a directory, and some mirror where the packages are fetched from. Okay. After that, you have to do, of course, some configuration, like provide the network, you want to log in with your SSH key, and a bit more. And then you can just start this container. Okay, and this is more or less just another call in Ansible, or with systemd, you could just system control start and then this container service. Okay, now you have the system up and running, this Ubuntu system, and then we just run with Ansible. We logged into this Ubuntu, and we just fetched the brand up-to-date BigBlueButton install script and piped that into Bash. And here are some parameters which are used by Ansible to find the correct host name and IP address and stuff like that. And then this takes some time. And after that, you're ready. You have a BigBlueButton server. Okay. And now we cloned this container. This can be done with command machine control. In the beginning, we had we made a single image of this container, and this could be fetched from an extra server. But later we found it easier to prepare always one container from scratch on one host, and then clone this container as often as we wanted to do. In the beginning, we really started with about 27 or 28 BigBlueButton containers, but then we quickly reduced this number. That was the status already at Easter. Most of this design and setup has been done in Easter vacancies in last year, and we then got more servers, and the setup was the stand-up setup which Jesus described before. Our schools have all a Moodle instance, which is not provided by our team, but by the academic network provider. And they use this Moodle plugin, and this Moodle plugin connects to the Scalelite server. Jesus already showed that. And then the Scalelite server, we had one single Scalelite server, fetches all information from the BBBs on all these hosts, and finds the one which have nothing to do, and redirects the user to his session. Okay, that was the status at mid of last year, and we had about 40 hosts and more than 1,000 BigBlueButton instances. This worked fine. And after summer vacancies, school started, so there was not that demand to scale this more, and it was rarely used. But then winter was approaching, second wave, schools again shut down, and this is a screenshot from our monitoring system. And you see we had about 32,000 parallel users. It's a typical pattern. Student starts at 7:45, 8 o'clock, something like that. And then usually there are, or in most schools, there are 2 45-minute slots and then a break. And then again, 2 45-minute slots, break again and again. And then there's break for noon. You go for lunch or something like that, and then in the afternoon there's not that much traffic. And at that usage, we got troubles with the single Scalelite we had at that time, and we did not care about the Scalelite before because it always worked. We just focused on other problems, and Scalelite, it worked for us, and we didn't study it in detail. So we were pretty beginners. Probably we were still. But what happened then? We were asked by the administration if we can scale our infrastructure. And when I heard this the first time, Andreas asked me, or he told me that the administration has asked us if we can scale this our setup by a factor of 10. I thought it was a joke. Okay, we had already thousands of BBB instances. We had about 40 huge servers, and now we should do this all factor of 10. And it was just before Christmas, and I sat down between the public holidays and thought about that. And we wanted to scale it in a way that we don't need to change everything from user side. So all these Moodle instances should in best case keep all the same secret, all the same URL. They connect to the Scalelite, and yeah, we came up more or less with this idea. We just first we got some tips from Jesus and Fred, and we made we call it HA Scalelite, okay? And Jesus has shown this before in one of his slides. We put 2 or 3 of the normal Scalelite, and only one of these Scalelites has a polar, okay? And then all these Scalelites have an external Redis and PostgreSQL database, okay? So we put that on the host, and so it doesn't matter which Scalelite you ask, because the information they handle is the same, because all this information is in these single databases. We have no recordings. I should stress this. This makes it a bit simpler for us, okay? But now we had 10 times the infrastructure we had before, so we thought, it would be great if we have like this single entry point, and then we route the traffic like in some way to the one infrastructure, like we make 3 infrastructures almost the same identical, with just one of these HA Scalelites before in front, and then we have I call it here a main HA proxy, which routes the traffic to one of these infrastructures. So every single HA Scalelite has just to take care about one part of the infrastructure, has to collect all the loads and so on, meeting IDs and all this, and all the others, these 3 infrastructures are completely independent, okay? And just this main HA proxy in the front cares about the routing, okay? But of course, if you think a bit about it, it's not so simple, because people join a meeting, and it's not just, this meeting is then on one of the servers, okay? Say this meeting is, say here on this server, and now all other participants of this meeting have to end up on this server. So if you're ending up on another part of the infrastructure, there is no such meeting you're looking for. So you have to find a way, how can you make sure that all participants of one meeting end up on the same part of the infrastructure? The Scalelite knows about all meetings running, so end up on the same HA Scalelite, and then are redirected to this to the meeting. And we studied this a bit, and the trick was you can have in HA proxy something like you can load balance on a URL parameter. Okay, you can the HA proxy looks at the URL that is called, and it picks out this parameter, which is meeting ID in our case, and all requests with this meeting ID end up on the same route. Okay, you can adjust some more stuff. We use this hash type consistent, and it was pretty exciting if it would work, but it worked. With this trick, we were able that every meeting, someone starts a meeting in the Moodle plugin, and okay, there is already a meeting ID. This meeting ID, depending on this meeting ID, we end on one part of our infrastructure, and everybody who joins this meeting has the same meeting ID, so ends also on the same server, and it just work. I'm looking back. I wouldn't recommend exactly this setup. So probably there are better ways to do this. And yeah, it was like a shot in the dark, kind of, and but it worked. And for us, it's because we all we do this more or less in kind of spare time, or on the vacancies, and we don't have the resources to really do research and to really look into the, like, I think if you want to do this properly, you would really look at the time scales, which requests take how long, and where are problems and things like that. But when we need the infrastructure, we don't have this time, and when we don't need the infrastructure, then we have other things to do, because we are all teaching. Okay, so yeah, it worked for more than 180,000 parallel users. Maybe. I think I said most of the important stuff, and I don't want to extend the time too much. So I come to the next challenge, I would say. That was the upgrade to BBB 2.3. So we learned, of course, that LibreOffice is in Docker now, and this is if you like simple and like lightweight setups, then it's of course terrible to put a Docker container in systemd nspan, okay? Because systemd nspan is very basic thing, and you want to keep it simple and really control. Don't want to have this black box, and so this is exactly the opposite. And in the first attempt, I thought, oh shit, we have to completely start from scratch, kind of. But then I thought, well, let's give it a try. Maybe in a first step, we can just manage to run this Docker container in systemd nspan. And indeed, it was possible, and it wasn't too complicated. It's not nice, definitely not. For example, all these nice private users, you have to get rid of those, and you have to switch on and off a few things. You have to make sure that a container has much more power. But in the end, it worked. Okay. If you're interested how to do that, you can look in our repository. It's all public, like public money, public code. And of course, in the long term, we would love to see something like moving this LibreOffice into a separate container, and like the turn server on one host, we would have then this LibreOffice converting container, and all hosts in a private network would connect to this single container and convert presentations and stuff like that. Okay, so this is also solved for at least for the time being. And I just wanted to show you most of this year's traffic. Note that these numbers here are not correct, because there is like an averaging window over the daily data, and these numbers then go down a lot. But up here, that's the maximum number of participants we got so far. I would assume that with new BigBlue, with the new BigBlueButton version, we reduced the number further the number of containers on one host. So we've now on one of these strong machines, we have 4 BigBlueButton instances. And I would expect that we can provide 200,000 for we can support 200,000 parallel users with the infrastructure. But at the moment, as you can see here, you always see when there's vacancies or when there's a change in the Corona regulation, then it changes. And now we have only very little meetings, of course. Okay, I want to thank you for your attention. And of course, I want to thank everybody from the BBB team, Jesus and Fred, and I can't name all of them, for this great software. And I think we have some time for questions left.
Thank you so much, Andy. That was a fantastic and very impressive presentation. You're right that we do have some questions. I see one in the chat from Sergio, who asks, how do you handle failover of single components in Scalelite, e.g. the polar crashes?
We have some monitoring, and I remember that it happens, that it happened sometime, but it doesn't happen often. So usually, right now, I would almost say it just works. We have some problems with the turn server that after some time, the turn server kind of stops working. This is a problem when we have students or people join from very restricted networks where this relay functionality is the turn functionality is needed. And this is our main problem or main cause of when things don't work. The polar, usually people, we have a hotline and people complain, and then we look what we can do if this there are it's kind of like a hotline or email, and it's not typical that the polar crashes, so there is no special measures here.
Okay, there's another question in the chat. If you open it up, you can see it because I'm not really sure how to pronounce some of these words. But Theory asks, what type of Redis and PostgreSQL HA did you set up?
This is just Debian. Okay, we did normal Debian packages, and for the HA proxy we switched to backports because we had also had some at very high loads. We had sometimes the problem is, with these time slots at schools, then it's really that in the morning, 6:45 to 8 or something like that, there are thousands of students and pupils joining sessions. And then it's getting calm again. And then from the second to the third lecture, there's again this huge traffic because people switch meetings. And the HA proxy, we had too many connections there, and then there was it couldn't get rid of all the requests. And so we upgraded to backports, and there it seems to have, it didn't appear again, but it's also, sometimes not so clear. And it's extremely difficult to test this setup and to check what was the root cause now. You change something and then maybe we were just lucky the next day, the last day. And so this is pretty difficult. And but in general, we just use Debian standard packages. And if these don't work, we try if it's available a backported package.
Okay, I see a question that came in on the YouTube channel from Victor, who asked if the recordings of this session will be available later. Victor, yes, they will be. At the end of the conference, we will be sending them out, and we'll also be advertising them on our social media and the Big Blue Button website. Lucas says in the chat, do you have any information of other federal states or universities interested in your solution?
Well, we have contact to other German Big Blue Button users from universities, but I think this is all on a informal level. So I think there's also a discussion going on in the public administration how to continue with information technology in schools and how to do more digital stuff in schools. And there are different fractions, like just use the big players or just learn how to do it yourself and do it in free and open source software and things like that. And this is mostly a political thing. And I think there haven't been made decisions on the political layer. And so we are interested in that, and we would love to see that. But so far, it's only on a personal, informal level to our friends and colleagues in other institutions.
Okay, Johannes has a question that I think might have a similar answer. Johannes asks, does the new Baden-Württemberg government support your project?
Well, the new government is the old one. So the person in charge for the school system has changed. That's right. But of course, she has also get into the work and understand things. That's pretty difficult. And there is at the moment there is extremely strong lobbying from very powerful companies, I would say, and that makes it difficult to get a voice in this discussion.
Okay, we have another question. Is your main HA VM or bare metal, and what resources are required?
The main HA proxy that is on bare metal. And let's just go back to this slide. These HA Scalelites, they're always the HA proxies on bare metal, and the VMs are just have the Scalelites, and the Redis and PostgreSQL are also on the host. Okay, this is all on the host, so that we have best performance. That was the idea behind that design decision.
Okay, I think that's all the questions at the moment. I don't see any more questions in the chat right now. Thank you to everyone who joined us today. We really appreciate all of you taking the time of your day to spend some time with Big Blue Button and with Andy and with Jesus. Like I said earlier, the recordings will be available later this week. Take a look at our website for those and keep an eye out in your email. Thank you all for joining again, and thank you, Andy, for taking your time and your expertise to present with us today.
Yeah, thank you for the invitation. It was a pleasure to to show our work, yes. And thanks again for everybody who made this possible from the Big Blue Button team.
It's our pleasure. Okay, everyone, I'll be stopping the recording and closing the room. Have a great afternoon or evening.